At the end of Book 1, Aristotle takes up the other two relations in the household, that of husbands and wives and that of parents and children. In both cases, he believes that the hierarchy of ruling and ruled applies by nature. With respect to the marital relation, he takes it to be completely uncontroversial that men should rule over women. He claims, quote, "The relation of male to female is, by nature, a relation of superior to inferior and ruler to ruled," end quote. His implied argument here seems to be the same one with respect to natural slaves and masters. This recalls Pericles' brief word of advice to the women of Athens in the funeral oration. Women are regarded, in a sense, as children who are unable to manage their own affairs. They thus need the help of their husbands who can serve them as their bosses and direct them in ways that are beneficial. The implication is, of course, that they are unable to do this themselves. This, too, is offensive to our modern sensibilities that understand a marriage relation as one consisting of love between two free and equal partners. Aristotle's text again reminds us that our modern view took centuries to develop. For a very long time, women were regarded as fundamentally inferior to men, and this justified not allowing them to participate in different aspects of life. Vestiges of the old view can still be seen today in many different customs and practices, which are still performed, although they've lost their original meaning. For example, it's a well-known part of the wedding ceremony that the father enters with the bride and then passes her over to the groom. In the old days, the idea behind this gesture was that the woman was a child who needed a master. At first, that was her father, and now she is marrying. This responsibility passes over to her husband. Even more offensively, this has also been conceived as a form of mercantile exchange, whereby the woman represents a possession requiring maintenance. She is thus, so to speak, transferred from one owner to another, accompanied by a dowry intended to offset the costs. The only household relation discussed by Aristotle that seems intuitive to the modern mind is that of parents to children. It seems obvious that children need instruction and guidance from their parents, and those who do not receive this have difficulties in their development. In this sense, Aristotle's idea of parents ruling their children as a natural relation makes some sense when taken in general. But even in this case, the matter is not so straightforward. The whole idea of child rearing is to educate children so that they gradually learn to take responsibility for themselves. In time, they learn to be independent so that when they reach the age of maturity, they're able to go their own way. In this case, it would be a mistake to conceive of the parent-child relation as one of a ruler and the ruled, since while this might apply for the initial period, later it's no longer relevant. When the child grows to adulthood, he or she is no longer in need of being ruled over. So the hierarchical relation disappears over time. But this is not something that Aristotle seems to recognize. His idea seems to be the same as that found in many other ancient societies, that people remain in this hierarchical relation even when they become adults. By virtue of the difference in age and experience, one is always subordinated to one's elders. Aristotle also takes up the question of whether slaves, women, and children can be virtuous in the same way that free men can be virtuous. He argues that since all these groups have slightly different roles and functions, they share in virtue to different degrees. While a free man might need the virtue of courage in many different contexts, slaves, women, and children also need it, but yet to a lesser extent, each in accordance with their own station. Thus, he does not deny that those who are by nature ruled also have some share in virtue, but his point is that this is different from that of freemen who are determined by nature to rule over others.